name is Tony Gonzalez. I'm from This is Rock, the Spanish magazine.
Yes, sir.
Yes, we interviewed you for the last time 5 years ago.
5 years ago. Wow, man.
Yes, was a shame. I would like to talk to you more frequently, but
yeah, man,
we are here because the band will release a new album, Scream in the Sky. I imagine the people screaming the sky at the sky when they are happy. Wow! But sometimes also when they are under a lot of pressure. So I would like to ask you about the message behind the title.
It's both. It is all encompassing to the elements that make you want to scream at the sky, you know. And I feel like we have songs that reach all of those as well, you know, sadness, frustration, anger, happiness, you know, all those elements are in this record, and it just seemed to really sum up the feeling of it quite well.
Our last interview, as I told you, was with the magazine, was 5 years ago. In the meantime, the band released The Human Condition. And tell me, what are the main differences between The Human Condition and the new material? Or maybe The Human Condition and the new CD are part of the new side of the band?
Well, I mean, the biggest difference, I guess, is there's a different bass player. You know, we went through a change as well with a member, and you know, man, we came out the other side of it. I think, you know, just working stronger and harder than ever, man. You know, and we're beyond proud of this music. And Steve has come into the fold and been absolutely fucking amazing. And we're just super excited for people to hear this. You know, I'll say this: I feel like that Screaming at the Sky is the most honest record we've ever made.
We must remember that The Human Condition was your 6th consecutive #1 debut on the UK rock album charts. The single again was the band's biggest single in over 10 years in America, and your highest charting record ever in Canada. And the album has 50 million streams worldwide. This success add more pressure when the band writes songs for Screaming at the Sky?
I don't think so. I mean, because I didn't even know those numbers until you just told me those numbers.
No?
You know, because I really didn't. I didn't know the stream numbers or that it was the highest we had charted in Canada. You know, or that it was the 6th consecutive in the UK. Those things, man, like it's amazing. And those accolades, when you sit back and you hear them, you're like, holy shit, we did that. That's kind of unreal. But in the moment, you don't really think about stuff like that. You're just you want to get the songs out and play them for the people.
In 2022, the band were touring over Spain. I remember your show in Madrid. The place was crowded, and you have played several concerts in Spain. What do you consider is your most important show here, or the show you enjoy the most?
The next one we play there, and that's the kind of mentality that we have. You know, the most important show is when we come back. You know, when the next time we're there, because the other ones have passed. You know, the most important one on my mind is when we get to come back again and do it all over again. You know, and that's the beauty of it, is getting the chance and the opportunity to come and play the music again.
With this record, maybe it's my idea, or the band is working on a wider sound, more modern sound.
I think if anything, it's just growing. You know, I don't think we're trying to change anything. I think it's just we're growing, you know, constantly. And the last thing we ever want to do is put out the same thing over and over again, you know. So I'm glad you noticed that it sounds a little different, you know, and that there's different elements and stuff.
A lot of magazine journalists say about your band that the band looks like, or were the followers of bands like Lynyrd Skynyrd. But with this CD, Screaming at the Sky, I consider that this sticker is going old. It's getting old.
Yeah. I mean, look, we absolutely admire those bands, and Lynyrd Skynyrd is my favorite band of all time. You know, it's a part of me, you know, and we always have been Southern because that's who we are and where we're from. But we've never tried to sound like a Southern rock band, you know, and I think that this record just kind of puts that a little more to the forefront of us not sounding as Southern as people make us out to be sometimes.
The first songs that made me think on it that the band is getting wider in the sound was the initial part of When the Pain Comes, because it's the first time that I remember the band is entered with an epic sound. How was this song conceived?
Man, that one, Ben had like a little guitar thing going, and we kind of just got on the back of the bus. It's kind of the same with all these songs. It would be a guitar riff or just an idea or a drum idea or something that we would have, and then we would get on the back of the bus and open up Pro Tools and start kind of building a song, you know, and it's awesome to write in that way for us, because you have all that motivation and influence and just want to from, you know, the live shows and the energy from the road and things like that, you know. But that's one of the things that I love about this is the record was written on the road pretty much.
I enjoy Back to Blues era, but that means that the Back to Blues era is over?
I don't think it's ever over. You know, it's because it's like I said, that's a huge part of who we are and a huge part of what we do. I would love to do another either Back to Blues or do something else. You know, what we could do. I would love to do different genres as well. You know, just keep expanding musical horizons and trying different stuff.
When we pay attention to the lyrics, as usual, have different meanings, taking account who is listening. But let me ask you something that maybe you will laugh about it. Can we consider Nervous a love song?
It's not really a love song. It's not from my perspective anyway. You know, it's a song of just reflection and things that led to me feeling and being the way I am, and you know, my mental health and things like that, you know, the things that I went through as a child and growing up, things like that. You know, it's song starts off memory lane. It's 85, a baby boy with big blue eyes. I mean, that's about as reflective as I can get, you know.
And let me tell you now I'm going to confess you something. Sometimes the band plays cover. In the last album was the ELO. Mm-hmm. Now, when I saw Roar, I imagined the words. I imagined a cover from the infamous and horrible Katy Perry song.
No.
Yes, but later I discovered that it's a beautiful song, and it's a special song for you, Raindrops on a Rose. Tell me about this song.
So that song, man, the original orientation of that song was written by myself and Jordan Westfall, who engineered and mixed the record. And I had been going down to the studio during the pandemic and just kind of writing songs. And I've been writing songs with friends of mine, just kind of like as a mental health thing, if nothing else, just to go write songs that just for whatever reason, you know, just a friend of mine and just go write a song just the hell of it. And that's what we were doing. And that day it was just me and Jordan down there. And that morning I was waiting on my dad to come over to the house because he lived right beside me. And he would come over and sit with me every morning. That was just kind of our thing. That was one of the things he loved to do. And it was raining that morning, and there's a rose bush right at the porch, right where we sat. And my dad was battling stage 4 cancer at the time, and you know, it was a grim outlook, but we still enjoyed our mornings together on the porch. But I kept watching the raindrops kind of puddle up and get larger on the rose petals, and it was just captivating. You know, it kind of acted as a magnifying glass when you get up close enough to look, you know, and you can really see the intricacies and the beauties of the rose petal. But eventually there would be so much rain on it that it would have to let go and completely start the cycle over again. And it just really struck a chord with me. And all the way there, I just had that in my head: raindrops on a rose. They're easy on the eyes, but they're heavy on the soul. And Jordan had just recently lost his dad. And I was going through losing my dad, you know, and it was a song kind of written about that, about, you know, saying goodbye to your hero, essentially. And then the guys heard it one day. I played it for them on the bus, and they were like, "We love that song." And I said, "Well, I would love to make it a Blackstone Cherry song if you guys would put your stamp on it with us, you know." And they got with us and made it and we all, you know, the five of us made it a Blackstone Cherry song with Jordan included on that one, you know. And it's a truly deeply sentimental song to me. And you know, Raindrops on a Rose is a beautiful title, but it's kind of long, and I just thought calling that song Roar was, it kind of embodied everything, you know, because when you lose someone you love like that, it goes back to screaming at the sky, man. You just want to roar, you know. And it just, I don't know, you know, that's one of those ones that really means a lot. And one of the things I love about it is the original demo version of that me and Jordan did. The guitar solo in the middle of the song after the second chorus is still the guitar solo from that original demo version. We were able to keep it and put it in the album recording.
Did you know the Katy Perry song?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
I do.
Okay, yes, you know, that is totally different. Sorry for your loss,
Thanks, sir.
Chris. Let me tell you that, for example, my father was very far from me, but not my mother. And when I lost my mother, I discovered that from this moment on, I became a different person.
Yes.
Yes, this
100%.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, man, it's, you know, it's kind of the opposite for me, but my dad, you know, like me and him were just like inseparable, man. You know, he's the reason I picked up a guitar to begin with, is I wanted to be like him, you know. So it's different, you know, without them, but they're always with us, you know. And my dad told me he'd always be with me. So I have to believe that, and I carry that with me everywhere.
Another song that lies me is Smile World, because I'm tired of everybody complaining that is in the song, a verse you use in the song. What are your ideas?
Man, so that one, it came from a joke, literally, and it came from exactly what you're talking about. So I woke up one morning and I wasn't in a good mood, and I just started just talking shit to everybody, just kind of, you know, just pestering everybody and just kind of being bitchy. And John Free goes, "Damn, Chris, what do you do? Just wake up and say, 'Smile, world.'" And Steve goes, "That'd be a great song title." And then Ben kind of got this idea rolling, man. And we kind of had this melody we were humming it, da, 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 and we got to going on it, man. And next thing you know, there's this song rolling, and it was just, it felt like a really nice way once the song was finished to balance out all the seriousness on the record. You know, to have a song on there that's kind of more of a, let's turn this thing around a little bit. You know, we know how bad things can be, but it's only as bad as you let it be, you know, and you can do things to make even the worst days a little bit better, man.
I imagine the last song is You Can Have It All. And I imagine that you put this song in the last track because it's a little more positive in the lyrics.
Yes,
was that way?
absolutely. And also the way the song sets up musically, it's very different than what we've typically done. You know, it comes right in on the vocals, as opposed to, you know, some kind of musical thing that we typically do. But yeah, man, you know, it's just kind of a reminder that even all the shit that the world's been through over the last several years, and people have struggled and been put against each other for no reason, and there's so much division in the world right now that it's just kind of a way to say, look, even with all of this, you can still do the things that make you happy and what you truly want, you know.
Sometimes I think that we are coming back to the dark ages. And listen to your new CD. There's no beating around the bush in your lyrics. Don't you mind that people with sensitive skin will be offended by any lyrics?
No, because I look at it like this is our world and this is our truth, you know, and artistic freedom is just that, you know. If anyone gets offended by lyrics, I apologize, but it's just, I write the truth, that's what the four of us do when we write songs, man. We write the truth. We don't, we're not going to beat around the bush. The world we live in now, there's no need to be anything other than who you are. I think if anything now that seems to be the most common goal, is for people to be who they are, and I feel like who we are is one hell of a rock and roll band, and I feel like we wrote some great songs this time.
This is the first record, as you told me at the beginning of the interview, with the new bass player, Stu Jewell, who has been touring with you with Black Stone Cherry since 2021. Mm-hmm. Did he take part in the writing process?
Yes, sir. He co-wrote every single song with us. It's the four of us on every song, with the exception of Smile World, which also includes Jordan. But Steve was right there in the middle of it all, man, writing with everything. And he actually started with us at the end of 2020. He filled in when John couldn't make some shows, and then ultimately he's been in with us ever since. But that was, John made his decision. Steve's been the guy ever since, and the world has welcomed him with open arms, and we're so thankful of that. Steve's our dude.
During the lockdown, you wrote some songs. Roar was one of them. Mm-hmm. But the other are songs that are not part of Black Stone Cherry. What are you going to do with this song?
Man, whatever. Probably nothing, because like I said, it was just like a mental health thing for me, really. I couldn't go play music. I couldn't do the things that I'd done, and it was just a fun thing to write songs that weren't for Black Stone Cherry. I'd never written songs I'd never written a guitar riff without the intention of it being something for Black Stone Cherry. So I just got with some buddies that are also in bands and went down. I was like, man, let's go write a song. Let's just tune the guitar up standard, write a song, have fun with it, Tom Petty style, and go, man. And it was just a fun therapeutic thing for me,
So there is not a solo recording for
Absolutely not. No, I am much like Mr. James Hetfield in the fact of my musical endeavors are I sing for Black Stone Cherry. I play guitar for Black Stone Cherry. I'm one of 4 songwriters in Black Stone Cherry, and that's what Chris Robertson does. As far as singing on somebody else's song every now and then, that's a lot of fun. I did the Rockin' 1000 song, which was a lot of fun to be a part of. And then there's a couple other things I've been part of with the picture books. I played guitar on a Monster Truck song, and stuff like that's fun. But who Chris Robertson is the singer and guitar player, one of the guitar players, and the lead vocalist of Black Stone Cherry. That is my life. That is my passion. I have no desire to put out music outside of this band.
Thank you very much for this, Chris. Really, you are tied to Black Stone Cherry. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes. And as long as I understand, you didn't record the album in a regular studio. Am I wrong? No. Tell me.
We set up in a theater, man. It was like a 1,200 seat theater that was built for public speaking, kind of theater type stuff. And we do shows there every couple of years for charity. And we just decided to try the drums there, man. We had recorded in most of the studios around home, so we wanted to do something a little different. And that place was just epic, man. It's kind of like you don't need reverb plugins and things like that when you've got a room that sounds like a fucking castle. It was amazing.
You define Black Stone Cherry as the most American band ever. How can you understand your success in Europe being the most American band ever?
I don't know, man. I mean, like, you listen to our Family Tree record, and it's like just, Leonard Skinner, Tom Petty, kind of American sounding rock and roll. And obviously there's that influence of all the British artists and the other artists, but I don't know, man. Like, we're like t-shirt, blue jeans, American dudes, you know what I mean? Like baseball caps on stage, and that's just, but our biggest success comes when we cross the Atlantic Ocean and come to Europe and play our rock and roll. And man, it's something that I've never understood, but I don't really want to, because then it may take the magic out of it for me. It's kind of like when you see a magician as a child and you're so captivated, and then the internet shows you that trick and you're like, damn it, I didn't want to know how it worked. Like, it's almost like that. You kind of don't want to know who the man behind the curtain is. You want the Wizard of Oz to be real.
So you don't want to know the hat tricks from the
No hat tricks. Let's just go have fun.
Yes. Have the band plans to tour Europe in 2023, or we need to wait 2024?
We're actively looking at 2024. Because we're coming over to the UK for a short run. When the album comes out, we're going to be over there, and then we come back to the States and tour and finish up the year here. But then we are actively looking at a tour, and hopefully we'll be all over Europe and coming to Spain in 2024.
You mentioned when we were talking, Lynyrd Skynyrd, Tom Petty, but let me tell you what this spirit, the spirit of the American band, reminds me other bands from the 70s, like, for example, Grand Funk Railroad, We Are American Band, James.
Yeah, man.
Yes? Do you think that there are links between Black Stone Cherry and those groups?
Absolutely, man. I mean, dude, when you go back to the 70s rock, that's kind of the epitome of what really fit into us. Bands like Mountain and Aerosmith and all of those artists, you know, even the later 70s with Van Halen and things like that, you know, it's like there's a whole lot of that in us too, man. You know, and it's really like, man, one of my favorite soundtracks of all times is a soundtrack to a movie called Dazed and Confused. And it's just like the greatest 70s like era rock and roll and just great songs ever. And to me, there's something about that era of rock and roll that had this honesty about it. You know, it was just like dudes on stage or chicks on stage and just rocking the shit out and playing it with no frills, just a couple lights up in the rafters and a PA. And I think at the end of the day, that's more like what we are than, you know, a bunch of pyro and stuff like that, which, don't be wrong, we that's stuff's way cool, but like I feel like we could fit in, you know, definitely back in the 70s when it was just sweaty and rock and roll and just nothing but lights and a PA. You know, I feel like we could have also had a great time there.
To me, the most amazing song from Black Stone Cherry is James Brown. Why?
All right.
Why? Because I never imagined that you will sing a song about James Brown.
Hey man, look here. My musical catalog is a vast, extensive valley, and I think that's part of being a musician in your heart and not just in your mind, right? Like, for me, being a musician isn't just something I do. It's truly who I am. And I love all types of music, all forms of music, from bluegrass to Lamb of God to, you know, to the softest R&B stuff. I listen to all music. I truly do. You know, reggae is one of my favorite musics of all time. I have Bob Marley lyrics tattooed on my hand. It is what it is. But great music is great music, you know.
So, Chris, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, sir.
I enjoyed this interview a lot. I hope to see you in Spain again next year.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. I truly enjoyed it.
So, bye-bye.
Thank you.